Good afternoon. I am Iris BS and I will be going over student mental health in the elementary grades. First, I will go over the introduction, script, conceptual framework, purpose, rationale, interventions, application, and the conclusion. At the base of more than half of the classroom disruptions, behaviors, and academic shortcomings are connections of trauma. Teachers and administrators can combat this trauma with specialized training geared to aid those with mental health needs. Let's start by embedding mental health classes into our school district curriculum, especially for our educators. Before we dive in, let's look at how each disposition of script represents the core to aiding students with mental health concerns: social responsibility, commitment, reflective practice, integrity, and professionalism. Social responsibility. There are obligations in place such as IDEA, the ADA, Section 504, Rehabilitation Act, and Child Fine that our children are referred to for entitlements that they may qualify for. But if you think outside of those legal obligations, what is your social responsibility for making sure that we are taught the tools we need to help those with mental health? One of the social responsibilities that's important is differentiating between the learning modalities. Whether your children are visual, auditory, reading, writing, or kinesthetic. Teaching diverse learning is more than a buzzword, but a skill set required to expose all students to a variety of materials, activities, and assessments. Next is commitment. You show your commitment by delving deeply into what mental health is about. You create planning groups and leadership teams to help aid you in this process. Along with commitment, you show that you are there for some follow-through. And you follow through with staffing and facilities by coordinating with the district to discuss what kind of clinical or treatment services will be rendered. Will you be the type of educator that requires confidential spaces or cool-down rooms? How are you going to fund this training? Then let's dive into reflective practices. Your why. Simon Sinek often talks about your why. Also, your I. When you look deep inside, you figure out yourself reflectively, who you are as a teacher, and what are the things that you're going to utilize to make sure that your students understand that they are key in understanding how mental health is a serious thing we need to be learning about. Hassan Ardell has stated, teaching is considered one of the most stressful professions due to long work hours, extensive political bureaucratic policies, and mandated high individual teacher accountability and relatively low salary. Knowing all this, you realize to yourself, what is it that I can do to change this? Reflecting on teacher resiliency is key to sustainability in this field. Now let's go into integrity. One of the core values of the military is integrity first. As an educator, you gotta be a sounding board and be able to expose complexities. You have to have an environment that cultivates social emotional skills to help students notice and respond to injustice. Let ethics be your guide. Professionalism. One of the key reasons that educators can sometimes be deemed as unprofessional is sometimes our tact or the way we deliver. Professionalism regarding educators and student health professionals requires a skill of communication and willingness to advocate for crisis response. Communication skills are important for teachers because educators are at the forefront of change, so engaging in supportive interactions with distressed students is essential. Now we're going to dive into our conceptual framework. The first is know. What do we know? We know that adolescent psychiatrists are taught the skills necessary to support complex challenges that arise in children with mental health. What if we had just a snippet of that in our classrooms? The next 4 slides, I will go over 4 major mental health issues regarding elementary age students, and I will also break them down. How do we identify and create pathways to intervention? Anxiety is one of those disorders where it can look like tense fidgety. They may not be eating or sleeping properly. But you have to find ways to help them stay in the moment, in your time zone. Figure 8 breathing, take a walk, or the 3-3-3 rule. The next is depression. What depression may look like in some of your students is unhappy, cranky, aggressive. They may just be blue. You can help them by being compassionate, resilient, giving positive intention, and grounding them. ADHD. This is one that I personally have encountered as a parent, and I added that it is important to know that ADHD is a highly saturated diagnosis. The threshold is minimal, and most students diagnosed may only show a marginal percentage of symptoms correlate to classic cases. We cannot excuse inattention and reluctancy, but we cannot also label children based on high tempo, what testosterone may look like in boys, and things of that nature. Some treatment priorities would be organizational training, accommodations, or developing plans that's unique to the child. What this may look like in your classroom would be an IEP. Few things to consider. The next is implements. Implementation requires data-based action and follow-through. Educators can be given a scaled blueprint and curriculum to help them learn these skills. We're not talking an in-depth 4 doctorate degree on mental health. It's just this scaled blueprint on what you need to teach your children. Within implementation, I created this ideology of creating a triad of triage, and I'll show you what it looks like next. Your triad of triage would be your collaborative team, which consists of the parent, the school, and your health professionals. This triangle of care will provide the best option in providing optimum care for your children. Other applications that you can think about, it would be they would self-enroll in online interactive guides. They will have certain pamphlets readily available. Worldwide, approximately 1 in 8 children or adolescents have a mental disorder. And I bring this up because implementation can sometimes look different, right? So we want to bring about interventions. Community-based interventions, they could be Bible studies, sports, anti-gang initiatives, cognitive behavioral therapy, school-based interventions, whether it's classroom observation and preventative problem solving, and lastly, assessment. Assessment is a tool used to create interventions and not just laissez-faire, right? You can be more in-depth and you can be innovative in what you're using to help your children. The last conceptual framework is believes. You have to believe in helping students, and you got to be concrete in your stance, right? There won't be no, well, they're just kids, or how does a child know that they're depressed? Signs and symptoms, we aren't the judge and jury, but we're here to help and aid and support. Your collaborative teams could look like this, right? You have a team of believers. You have your principal, student aid, behavioral therapist, and you can see I added the occupational therapist. One member of this team you do not see will be the student themselves and the parent. What I have created is this idea of learning modules that's broken down into quarters so the information is easily accessible and it's easy for you to comprehend it, right? So I've created these quadrants where your first quadrant, you'll be discussing anxiety, finding ways to learning strategies, how to identify it. And then you go into your depression quadrant, ADHD quadrant, and then your behaviors quadrant as well. And this is in line with the students' quarters as well. So it's easy to know, like, hey, the next quadrant's coming up, we're going to be discussing depression, and then you can basically hone in on these practices. Other common conditions that you should be aware of is anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, and I added eating disorders because unique to post-pandemic is now they're back in these environments where their clothing and their appearance didn't really matter that much for 2 years. Now they're thrown back into these environments where it isn't a necessity for them. So be careful, especially with your young girls, especially entering into middle school. In conclusion, change the culture, change the curriculum. Humans are fundamentally social, and thus supportive connections with others are an essential factor in promoting mental health. We talk about limbic resonance a lot when I'm communicating with my care team, and it's important that you care deeply. Care is often associated with a physiological change. You, as an educator, can literally feel how you care about these students. Thanks for your time.